Alright lads, I'm PO2 and I fucking suck at League of Legends. Hi guys, I'm basically going to be giving a patch 8.21 rundown, and this is for the lower elo, and I will also be concentrating in competitive since Worlds is on, and I do try to keep a keen eye on competitive League of Legends as well. The patch itself isn't that big, particularly. Seems like we've got maybe a couple of items, some skins, and maybe 4 or 5 champions or something like that. Anyway, let's quickly go down it. So Alistair has lost. How much health is that? I mean, he got his health decreased anyway. It's now down to 573, which I think is actually a nice little nerf for Alistair. Alistair does have a lot of domination in lane when you have a pick that can actually work around him. So if you play a Kaiser or if you play a Lucian, I do believe you can actually work around Alistair pretty easily. I don't think it's that difficult. And Alistair can, in general, just seems to be a bit of a lane bully, especially when you're playing against an enchanter. So I think this nerf is quite nice. I'm not sure what it's going to do in competitive. I think he'll still be picked in competitive, but we'll have to see in the future. Now, it seems like they've done a lot of Ashe. Passive slow increased. E pings enemy champion when it spots. That's very nice. The pinging of the enemy champion is very nice, actually. I think the passive slow increased. Maybe they're doing that because Ashe isn't getting picked many times right now. And I think the reason that Ashe isn't getting picked as much is because you have to pick a nice comp around Ashe. And on top of that, with no mobility and with the amount of mobility champions that we do have in the game at the minute, I personally think that Ashe actually does struggle in big team fights or in skirmishes. So I think giving her buffs like the slows and stuff is okay, but I don't think it's what's going to make her picked as much. The E Hawkshot, giving the actual ping on an enemy is very nice. For solo queue at least. I mean, competitive, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. So I think the buffs are okay, but I don't think it's going to make her get picked any more in solo queue than she does before. Maybe it has a difference in competitive, but it's hard to see. Aurelion Sol. Aurelion Sol has lost 52 health, but has gained 0.5 mana health regen. I think this is okay. I think Aurelion Sol's ganks is one of the best in the games, along with like Talon. But I think that it was needed necessarily to give him a nerf? I don't think so. I don't think he's as oppressive as people make him out to be. He's also an incredibly difficult champion to actually play. Maybe this is for high elo, and obviously since I'm not high elo, I don't particularly watch too much of it or play too much of it. But in low elo, he certainly doesn't get picked, and if he gets picked, it's basically a troll because most people just can't play him unless you come across a one trick. But maybe this is what he needed. I can't really comment too much about this Aurelion Sol pick, to be honest. So I've heard about the Q bug fix and the spinning axe that bug that he had with Draven. This is I think Tyler One was talking about it and saying how he's had his Q bugged for like 4 or 5 years or something like that. So it's good that he's eventually um, had it fixed or whatever, but this is no actual buff or nerf. It's more of just hey, we did this. So, I mean, that's fair enough. Ezreal, W damaged increased late. So, they say Ez's new W isn't packing as much for punch as we'd like. I think this is very interesting. I've seen quite a lot of AP Ezreal mid lanes. And I think actually he's stronger than people think. I think that his W kind of acts as a new Sheen or like like a mini Sheen almost, and it works very well in conjunction with your Q and your auto attack. So domination is another keystone that or tree line that you can actually go down with Ezreal now. Um, I I'm not sure if I think that I guess maybe he doesn't actually do as well late game. Um, thinking about it, maybe yeah, maybe his late game isn't as good as it could be. But certainly, mid lane Ezreal, early game does feel very strong. When I've played against Ezreal's. Although, as I say, I can't say I play against much of it bottom. I've heard lots of annoyances coming out of the new Ezreal W though. So I guess we'll only see what happens. But I mean, I guess the buff is good. Do I think he's going to get picked in competitive? Still, yeah. I don't think this is going to change anything. Maybe he gets picked more. Maybe he gets banned more now. Um, I don't think I don't think this would necessarily make him like a first pick or a first ban. I don't think this makes him super OP, but I do think it helps him scale more safely and very well. Also, could be a return of AP mid lane in competitive as well. Irelia, movement speed reduced. I think this is actually a fantastic nerf. Um, Only by 5 movement speed, but still, I think this is very good. I think this is more of a nerf on Aurelion mid lane. Aurelion mid lane has been dominant for quite some time in high elo and in competitive. Seeing caps from Fnatic picking it 5 times at Worlds, and I've won 4 games with it. So certainly seems like Aurelion mid lane is a necessity, almost it feels like, for Fnatic, and in some of the competitive, you see Bjergsen playing it a lot as well in NA. So I think um, this is a nice nerf for Irelia mid lane. Irelia top lane, I don't feel like it's going to like make a huge chunk of change, but the base movement speed in general getting nerfed is very nice since in team fights and skirmishes, it does feel like she does have a lot of mobility, and it's hard to, almost like a Yasuo where it's hard to click on. So, um, yeah. So I think this is a nice nerf. But I do wait for the day until they actually decide what to do with Aurelia, because it always seems to be buffs, nerfs, and then etc. etc. So we'll see what happens. Ivan. Um, Movement speed increased, E shield increased, W on hit damage increased early. So this just seems like an overall buff for Ivan. So the movement speed I can only imagine would be for his early game pathing in jungle, and maybe for his ability to try and hit his Q. You don't see a lot of Ivan played like whatsoever. I think last time I looked on the win rates for junglers, I think Ivan was one of the lowest of all the junglers. He's not played, he's not picked, and when he is, it sort of feels like he's trolling, because there's much better picks out there almost right now, is what it feels like. The uh, on hit damage for the W is nice, but I don't think it's going to make it. I mean, it's nice for the early game. Maybe that's where he needed the help. And at rank 5, it stays the same. The shield early game is nice, so maybe it does. Maybe it does help him. Um, in the early game side of things, but I can't say too much about Ivan since I don't play him, I don't see him often, and in competitive he's rarely played, at least in the regions I watch. So I'm not sure what this is going to do, but I'm interested to see if it does spark any reaction out of people. Kaiser, passive proc scaling decreased, ultimate shield duration decreased. So Kaiser's another weird one, like Aurelia, where Riot doesn't seem to know what to do with her, or that's how I feel at least. Um, I think Kaiser right now is actually in a very nice spot, and is like an A tier, maybe A plus tier ADC right now. She was in the jungle at one point, but then I think that's been toned real down, so I don't think I've really seen her in the jungle whatsoever. The good thing about Kaiser is that you can play AP and AD on her. I personally believe that the AP side of it is stronger than the AD. Obviously, with the AP side costing more in general in items. What that does is it makes her a super late game carry, kind of like your old school Kog'Maw or your Twitch. I basically say that's just the AP version of Twitch if you wanted to play that. I think if we just go to a R, I think the shield duration can be quite nice to have it at 3 seconds, though I do think a second off her shield duration is going to make her shield almost not viable, I guess. Like, realistically, when you're using your R is when you're trying to gap close against. If you've just won the tail end of a team fight or a skirmish and you use your R to try and finish off a kill or something, that's really nice. But if you're using your R defensively, the shield for 3 seconds is quite nice, although your early game shield is pitiful. So maybe taking a second off will make it used less defensively, but realistically, it's not used defensively whatsoever, from what I see at least. And the passive, taking what's that, 1.25% off. That seems a little much. Though I'm not very good with numbers and scaling, so I can't see how much it's actually going to affect. But that does seem a little much. And maybe that will change how AP or how Kaiser is going to be played altogether. I see right now in competitive that AD is the most common choice of all of the two options even. So maybe actually this just puts AP Kaiser out of practice for a while until maybe she gets a buff or something, or a better AP item comes out. This is interesting. We'll have to see definitely what's going to happen. I don't think anything actually is going to happen in the competitive scene, since, as I say, they play AD and the R is generally used aggressively rather than defensively. So, I don't know. I think this is only going to be a difference if the bot lane is getting 5-man or something, for example. I think this is only when this is going to be a difference. But that's it for Kaiser. Karma, excuse me. Karma, W root duration increased early. This is quite nice, actually. I think that Karma is very underplayed at the minute, and I think where Karma shines, in my opinion, is actually the diversity of Karma. So you can play Karma support, middle, and top, and actually back when in the middle of summer, you could play Karma ADC as well with the meta shift. So I think Karma is very viable everywhere. And with the W root duration, this certainly does help Karma top. With my experience of Karma top, W root duration increased by 0.4 seconds at level 1 is actually staggeringly scary. I can only imagine what that'd be like for the mid lane Karma too. Support Karma, I'm not sure how often you will get your W root off, and realistically, it is because you're maxing shield first and then your root. I think that having the 0.4 seconds on your level 1 root is nice anyway for your level 1 to 6, 7, 7. So this is just a good overall buff. Actually, I quite like that. Will I see any more Karma being played in the bot lane for competitive? I think that's very pick dependent. I think it all depends on Karma. Feels right now like she's not in the meta, but she can be put anywhere, almost like a Sivir. It feels like you basically react with a Karma rather than actually opening up with a Karma. So I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. You don't see any Karma in solo queue at low elo, at least. I think in high elo it's a little bit more common, but in low elo it's just too boring for us low elos to play Karma, I think is the case. Karma, Karthus. W cooldown and cost decreased. R cost decreased. Wow. Okay, let's have a look at this. W Wall of Pain. Cooldown 18 seconds to 15 seconds. Cost 100 mana to 17 mana. 17 mana. R Requiem. Cost 100 mana at all ranks. Wow. That seems like quite a huge buff to Karthus altogether. I'm trying to think why they've done this. the first thing I can think of definitely is that it certainly feels like a massive buff to top lane Karthus. Top lane Karthus kind of relied on your R. Was a counter pick to open up. I might as well open up as that. It was a nice counter pick, and your R was reliable as you could just finish. You had overall map presence, and you could finish off champions very easily as well. So your R being at 100 mana at level 6 is actually really significant. And if you can actually manage Karthus' mana correctly, I think this is actually going to be pretty interesting. The cooldown decrease by 3 seconds on the Wall of Pain is very nice for mid lane Karthus. So it basically helps you trade in, and it's going to mean that you're going to trade 3 seconds earlier than you would normally, as you would open up with your W and then Q and E. And also with it costing 70 mana means it's more viable to do that. I think this is actually pretty interesting. And does this mean that it can get picked in competitive? I think actually yes. Seeing this now, although Karthus is, you can play Karthus 2 ways. You can play Karthus normally in Glass Cannon, and if you're playing Glass Cannon Karthus, your R Requiem doesn't matter because it's free when you're in your passive. But I do think this is very interesting and could be a nice pick in competitive. I think this whole having map presence everywhere is kind of like a free gangplank, only ult times 5 is what it feels like almost. So I think this is very interesting. Is it going to be seen in competitive? I think so now, actually, possibly. And within solo queue, this certainly feels like a huge buff. So maybe we will see it more. Nunu and Willump. Bug fixing and rescripting. I'm not sure what I can really talk about this. Q no longer heals if consume is blocked by spell shield. That's quite nice. I actually do rate Nunu and Willump quite a lot. Nunu and Willump's a very nice AP. Is a nice AP jungler with early game presence also. Your level 3 is actually fairly strong. It's also if you have like nice gank assist, so if you're playing like a Nocturne top or something like that. No, not Nocturne, sorry, Nautilus top. I think actually Nunu and Willump can be very nice. But this in general just seems like it's just several different bug fixes. Zack, Q damage increased. Okay, this is interesting. My thought is that Riot is doing this because Zack is not getting much play in competitive and solo queue. I still think Zack is one of the better low elo junglers out there. He provides so much for your entire team, and actually has a surprising amount of damage compared to what people think. Zack in general is just fantastic, especially when he's got his passive up. He can do really, really crazy things, along with having a very nice level 3 gank, or even level 2 if you wanted to do that. Why Zack doesn't get played much in competitive is probably because a lot of the damage and the carry junglers are very meta at the minute. So you like your Jin Zhao's, your Graves, maybe even your Lee Sin is more meta right now, so Zack wouldn't get picked. But if you needed a tank jungler, Zack is certainly up there with your likes of Sejuani. So this is nice, and it's just basically a free buff, and I think Riot's only done this because he's not getting much play. Zoe, Q damage increase late, E cooldown decrease late. Interesting. So they are are buffing the Sleepy Trouble bubble late game. So what is it past? So it looks like your level 3 to your level 5 on your E is going to be quicker, or your cooldown is increased, and then your Q is going to be much stronger past level 3. I don't know if I agree with this. I think Zoe just wasn't getting picked because there were other picks out there, but I don't think that Zoe's bad, like, whatsoever. I think this is actually a ridiculous buff, in my opinion. I actually think Zoe is also like your Kaiser and your Aurelia's. Riot just doesn't seem to know what to do with her, and it's such a problem child right now for her, for Riot. I don't know why they've done this, and I think this is actually very poor decision making in terms of. I do think adding 20 extra base damage on your Q at level 5 will actually make a significant impact, especially if you land your E. I can't say I agree with this, and will most likely help competitive Zoe along with just solo queue Zoe. I don't agree with this, but and I don't understand why they've done this, but this will help her see more play. Gregor's audio clarity updates. This is just audio updates. Camouflage. We're shipping a few improvements to how Camouflage, the stealth whereby near enemy champs can see you, works behind the scenes. You shouldn't notice any difference for the most part, but there's one big exception. As part of our cleanup work, turrets no longer block line of sight since they don't block line of sight for anything else. So this is very interesting. It means that all of your so your Rengars and maybe your Pikes in bot lane will be affected by this. Do I think it's going to stop them doing what they're doing? Not at all. I just think that it is going to be nice to be able to predict what it is that they're going to do. Items. Edge of Night. Edge. So Edge of Night is a very interesting item. Excuse me. Edge of Night hasn't actually seen play for maybe the past 5 months. Edge of Night has been one of the most, if not the most useless AD items out there. Only reason you'll get that is for the extra AD or maybe a Rengar. So I think giving 100 gold off of the final cost is okay, but it's not going to help really in any such way. This or both, if you want to call it that, isn't going to help Edge of Night whatsoever. Edge of Night is just in a terrible spot right now as it is anyway. There's so many better options out there. I would rather go a GA than an Edge of Night in any such way. I would rather go anything else other than an Edge of Night. Edge of Night is just a useless item right now. It needs to be reworked. Essence Reaver, cost less. So I've taken 200 gold off of Essence Reaver. I think this could help the site of Essence Reaver Lucian again. ER Lucian was very nice. And then everyone stopped playing ER Lucian because we just realized actually going Bork into Black Cleaver is much better. So I think this is nice and does open up a lot of options since it's cheaper. So if you wanted to go first item ER, it can help to when you take 200 gold off it. So this is actually quite a nice buff, and we'll see if any other champions adapt to ER. On my way, ping audio. It seems that they've changed the ping, and so it indicates on the distance of where you are and stuff. I mean, that's okay. I don't play with audio pings on, so that I can't really discuss about that. Font size change or HUD font size. That's really nice. The font size was horrible and it felt so out of place before. So I guess that's nice too. Certain bug fixes and skins, and that's it. So in general, just to recap, I think that the Alistair nerf is nice. I think the Ashe buff is nice, but might not help her get picked. Aurelion Sol nerf, I think, was a little bit useless in my opinion. The Ezreal buff is nice for competitive and will be nice for mid lane Ezreal also. Aurelion nerf is very good. Ivern is in desperate help for buffs, so this is just one of them, I guess. Kaiser is one of the problem childs, and I guess the AP side of it isn't going to be as strong right now. Karma buff is very nice. Karthus buff is ridiculous. Won't be surprised if I see loads of him played at the minute. There's nothing on Nuno and Willem. Zack buff is very nice. Hopefully we'll see some more Zacks played and banned. Zoe nerf, another one of the troubled childs. No, this is Zoe buff, sorry. I don't see any need for it, and I think it's actually in poor taste from Riot Games. And the Edge of Night, they need to rework that item. It's awful. Essence Reaver, that's a nice buff if you want to call it that. So we'll see where that goes with other champions, and that's it. Alright lads, I'm PO2, and I fucking suck at League of Legends.